Well, good morning, everybody. Danny back from Deep South Homestead. And yeah, it's chilly this morning, guys. Oh man, the weather has been fantastic. It's a little breezy this morning. I hope it's not messing up with the camera and the voice on it. But I think when I checked a while ago, it was 50 degrees, and the wind's blowing some, which I don't know, the wind chill's just in the high 40s, but which is really, really nice for us here. This is kind of like weather was when I was a young kid growing up. Used to, my father would take me squirrel hunting on October the 1st, and there was usually always a frost. And I know in 1977, I had a bad car accident, and there was ice on the sides of the roads here. So I know that the weather has been really wacky for many, many years because it hasn't been that cold until now. It's starting to cool off earlier. And I know by mid-October, well, let's just say next weekend, going into the beginning of October and then toward the end of October, we're going to be cold down here. So, and the 1st of November, they're saying we're going to be cold. So we got to start getting ready for that. We're trying to get our winter crops in the ground now, and it's very difficult here because it is so dry here right now that literally, I mean, when we put plants out, we've got to keep water on them 2 or 3 times a day because of the low humidity and the wind, and there's no clouds. It's just bluebird skies. There's no chemtrails. There's nothing. I mean, it's just hot sun bearing down. Even though it only gets in the mid 80s during the day, the sun is still pretty intense on those little plants. You plant them up in the late evening, because I learned I don't put my plants out early in the morning now. I put them out late in the evening and let them sit overnight, and get up the next morning, they'll be just as pretty and green standing up, but by 12 o'clock they're laying flat on the ground. The sun has just wiped them out, you know, and then I just pray and water and hope that they stand back up, and then the next morning they'll be standing back up again, and then they're flat back on the ground again during the day. So until we get some moisture and some rain and some humidity back, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough getting something to grow because with low humidity in the south, it's pulling the moisture out of the plants because there's no humidity in the air. And it makes it very difficult to get little transplants up and going, especially cool weather ones. When it's cool in the morning, hot in the day, it's just it's frustrating. But that's life in the deep south, so we're used to it. We try to do the best that we can do. It's a battle every year. That's why our forefathers hardly ever, my whole life growing up, I never, ever, hardly ever remember anybody planting anything in the fall. They only planted in the early spring, and that was it. And when summer come, they had peas and butter beans, and the corn was drying in the fields, and that was it. You just didn't do any more. So, you know, that's it. I picked the last of the pink-eyed purple hulls this morning, and they're just sitting there dormant now. The leaves are falling off of the plants and stuff, and you know, if we get some rain, they may rebloom, but I don't know if they'll have time to put another crop on or not. I kind of doubt it. But and if they don't, I'll just pull them up and feed them to the cows. But now the red rippers in the front garden, they're still producing like crazy. So they're doing good. I picked a good picking off of them this morning. This has been a bumper crop year for peas for us here at the Deep South, and the stink bugs are just now. This morning on the pink-eyed purple hulls, I killed 4 stink bugs in that whole patch out there. Went to the front garden, and I found 3 in the front garden and a hatch out on one of the peas hanging down of about 25 or 30 on it, so I got the pea off and killed all of them. That's what I do in the early mornings when it's cool like this. People ask me about stink bugs, what to do to control them. Well, I get out at daylight or right before daylight, and I go through my gardens, and the stink bugs will 99% of the time, they're going to be stuck right up on the very tip top of the plant, and they can't move hardly. And I just go through, and if you don't like mashing them, then you take a little dish with you and put some like Dawn dishwashing liquid in it, kind of pretty strong, and some water, and you can go along just take and rake them off in that, and as soon as they hit it, it's over. You know, if that works for you. Me, I just mash them and just go on about my business. But some people don't want to do that. But that's how we control stink bugs here. And if you can beat them when their cycle starts, if you don't get out there early in the morning, it ain't happening. You never will control them if you don't get started early in the morning before the sun hits those plants. It's impossible. I've done this too many years, and I know from experience that that's the only way we keep our stuff under control from stink bugs. Now, you can spray if you want to, but we don't believe in spraying. So we get rid of worms that way. We get rid of stink bugs, and and if it gets to be too bad where we can't handle it, we just pull all the plants up and get rid of them. Because I'm not spraying chemicals on my plants. I just refuse to do it. It's just this year's been difficult. Now, we got no corn this year except for a little bit of Danny corn. Now, the Hopi, I don't know if I'll get an ear off of it. I mean, it looks so pitiful. I've left it just to see if I might get an ear off of it that I possibly could save a few seeds from, because it stood through this drought we're in. And I have people who send me links and say, well, I check your area, you're not in a drought. Well, let me tell you something. Where I live, I'm on the highest point in probably a 30 or 40 mile radius. And some places across the entire states I'm higher. 5 miles from where I live in any direction, the weather is completely different. Because we are, believe it or not, as close to the Gulf Coast as I am, I'm 350 feet above sea level. And it's just like a pentacle sticking up out of the land. Unless you look at Google Earth and find it, there's a pentacle sticking up here, and there's a ridge that runs from here on up through Mississippi. It goes kind of not through the center of the lower part of Mississippi, but more to the left-hand side a little bit, and then it curves back and heads back toward Alabama, up through Meridian, up to Alabama, up through that way. And they're like 400 something foot sea level. I'm at 350. It's just a ridge that runs down through here. And our weather is completely different than anybody else's weather. And it's hard to explain that to some people, but we have a microclimate here. It can be raining 3 miles around me or 4 miles around me, never rain here. It just, we've seen it. Me and my neighbors have talked about it over and over and over, as to how the clouds, you can watch them on a radar, they come and they break up and they go around this high area we live in, and they just come back together and start storming again. I don't know, I can't explain it. It's a landscape issue is all I can say, but we have a different climate here. Now when our climate is conducive to growing really well, we can grow amazing. But anyway, that's a little bit of history about where I'm at here and why I'm here. Sometimes I struggle with Porch Time about what I need to talk about. And I really, guys, I'm going to just be 100% honest with you. I really depend on the Spirit. I don't try to come up with a topic. All week long I think and pray and read and sometimes I don't get an answer until I sit down in front of the camera. And I just let the Spirit lead me. And it's sometimes it gets difficult. And the one this week is a little bit difficult to and I've said this past in Porch Time. Sometimes Porch Time is as much for me as it is for anyone out there who wants to listen to it, because I'm talking to myself a lot of times. And this week is going to be one of those times. So I guess I'm not very big on putting up titles. That's the reason thumbnails are kind of hard for us here at Deep South, because I'm not good at titling or anything like that, because I don't like to manipulate people or anything like that. It's just hard to come up with a subject title and I don't do it for the views. A lot of people go and look at what's trending and all this kind of stuff, and Wanda and I don't do that. You know, we just do what we feel like the Spirit leads us to do, and if it works, it works. If it don't, it don't, you know. But today, something hit me this week, because guys, I've been busting my tail now for probably the last 2 to 3 years. I got some information 2 to 3 years ago about things that's coming, and I try to give y'all nuggets along. And I appreciated so much in the live stream Saturday night. People were leaving comments. Danny, what you said was going to happen is happening exactly where we're living at, you know. And guys, I don't want any glory for that. Okay, I just tell you what's told and what the Spirit leads me to believe and what I find out, and I some things it makes me sad that they're actually happening. You know, I mean, you know, do we have any more issues coming? You know, people one of the big things is hurricanes. Are we going to have any more hurricanes? Based on water temperature, there's the possibility that we could have one more in the Gulf this year. The temperatures in the Gulf is just, I thought Ian would bring some cool water maybe back down toward the Gulf down here, and it did bring down some to the Carolinas out of the north up there, but I don't know that it made it all the way to the Gulf around Florida. And with that being said, the possibility of another hurricane this fall is pretty high in the Gulf. And if it comes in the Gulf, and I'm going to tell you what I'm praying for is that all these cool fronts will start coming down, and it'll begin to cool this Gulf off enough in the upper part of the Gulf that if one does get in the Gulf and the lower part of it's still screaming hot down there in the high 80s, is that even if it comes close to land, that the shallower parts of the Gulf will be cooled off enough that when it hits it, it'll break it down pretty quick. But to answer that question, I do, based on ocean temperatures and Gulf temperatures right now, there is still the possibility of another hurricane, and a bad one. But we're praying that we can get enough cool air down that it'll change those temperatures before it happens. Okay, that's going to answer that question for some who's been asking me. I don't have any inside information on on hurricanes. Okay, I just go strictly off of ocean temperatures and ocean loop currents and stuff like that, and following that type of stuff when I have time to look at it. But guys, this week, the thing that I'm going to talk about is something I'm struggling with, and I do covet your prayers on this, even for myself. Is what are we living for? And who are we living for? That's something that's been striking pretty hard for me in the last few weeks, because like I said, I've been busting my tail now for about 3 years based on things I've heard that was coming, and every one of them has come to fruition, and it bothers me because I've got family that I love, and I've got friends that I dearly love, and it seems as though everybody wants to just turn a blind eye. They don't want to look at what the possibilities are. They're like, oh, I'm not worried, you know, things always happen, and then, you know, life goes on. Well, guys, our earth is changing. There's things happening that in the solar system, there's things happening within the inside of our earth that is, it's happened before, just not in our lifetime. And there's some cataclysmic events that's going to happen. I mean, the internal part of our earth is heating up right now. And when something heats up from the inside, you guys know, if you've ever put a pot of water on the stove and watched it boil, I mean, steam's got to come off of it. When the inside of something gets hot, guys who understand transformers, we talked about this last week and other stuff like that, that heat's got to go somewhere. It's got to be displaced. And the internal temperature of the earth, if you look at the seismic stuff and the logical stuff that's going on in the earth. The earth's core is heating up hotter than it has been in the last 1,000 years. And it's not good. That heat's got to go somewhere. And it bothers me for people who just don't care. We can't change it. Now, I do understand we can't. There's nothing I can do to change it. But I do want to see people try to prepare, because food's going to get harder and harder to grow. And as it gets harder to grow, there's going to be less of it. And we know through the book of Revelation that, a day's wages for a measure of wheat or barley, or, that's pretty much famine. That means there's food out there if you've got the money to buy it. And Wanda and I, people keep asking us, why are y'all stocking up so much? Why are you putting so much stuff up? We got family. We love our family. We don't want to see our families go hungry. And if we can help them, my granddaughter's been coming down cleaning our house, and every time she comes and leaves, we send food back with her. I was like, sweetheart, she's just getting started in life, and I'm giving her organic grown food from our farm here. I told her, don't go to the grocery store and buy junk. Here, take this home with you, eat this. And her health is increasing. She's feeling better than she's been feeling. And I'm trying to instill within her the value of good food, nutritious food, instead of going to the grocery stores buying this garbage that's out there. In the live stream the other night, someone mentioned, why can't we get fruit that tastes like fruit? And I tried to explain, it's all picked green. And lots of it's injected with ethylene gas to ripen it. And that's even with your vegetables. And when you do it unnaturally, it's going to have no flavor. It's just a filler. And then they irradiate it to give it a long shelf life, which kills all the living enzymes in it. So then your stomach has nothing to break it down. You got to create acids in your stomach. And we've been down this before. You get acid reflux and you get all this GERD and all this kind of stuff. And it's because they've irradiated all the food. Eat something that's alive. Eat food that's alive, not food from a grocery store that's been radiation run through it. Grow something, eat something that's alive, and put that good stuff back into your system. Those good enzymes. But what are we living for, and who are we living for? Are we living for ourselves? Because let me tell you something, this is where I have been failing. I've been preparing for years to take care of me and Wanda. And there's nothing wrong with that, unless you become obsessed with it. And I've been preparing for us. And I've been living and doing things just strictly for us. And it's not all about us. Our job as born-again believers in Christ is to disciple others, to lead others to Calvary, and to bless those that are around us that are less fortunate. And so who have I been preparing for? I've been preparing for us. But I've come to the realization that I've got to try to encourage my family more to get involved and to prepare for all of us, because the scenario of running off out into the wilderness and building a homestead and not wanting to be a part of nothing or nobody and not wanting the government to, that's a fake dream, okay? That's a fake dream. And people go, well, I don't want nobody to know nothing. Well, I got news for you. AI knows every detail about you. AI knows every detail about everything that has anything to do with you. You could completely mask yourself up and walk through a place, and AI knows who you are by your walk. Okay? AI can figure out, it already has you pinpointed down to a T. There's drones flying above us right now that are in whisper mode that's mapping us, and I mean, we are literally being monitored every hour of the day. You're not going to hide from nobody. And that's why some people go, I don't know why you put yourself out on YouTube. What difference is it going to make? The government knows who you are, where you're at. They know every detail about you. So it's not like you're going to hide anything. So who are you living for? Are you living for yourself? Or are you living for your family and your community? Because without your family or your community, you're not going to survive. That's the bottom line. If there's just two of you and you're trying to survive, all it takes is something happen to one of you, and the game gets really, really tough. Now, another aspect of who am I living for is we should be living for God. You know, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear God brought into anything, because that's the society we live in today. Well, I got news for you. When you take God out of something, you just pretty much destroyed any hope you had for anything. Because all things were created by Him, for Him, and there's nothing made that was not made without Him. So why not be a part of Him? If that makes sense. To want to be anything different would be a fool. So what am I living for now? I have decided in my heart this past week, who am I living for? I'm living for the Lord now. And I've asked the Lord to help me with that, because I know I'm going to fail at it. At many, many times, I'm going to fail. Because there's times that I'll get specific information, and I'm like, I just want to jump out there, man. I said, man, I got to get this to the people and all. And sometimes the Lord says, no, I don't want you to say anything, and I go and do it anyway. And I run into a lot of trouble. I got to learn to listen. I got to learn to listen to the Lord, do what He tells me to when He tells me to, and not just jump out there because I get new information and go to tell people, because some things God don't want some people to know. As bad as that sounds, I couldn't grasp that concept, because Lord, I said, I want to help people. And He said, some people, I don't want you to help, because you just enable them. And it did ring home with me when I looked at it from the stance of enabling somebody. If you're always, let's look at it like this. If you've got someone who's constantly getting in trouble with the law, and they're getting put in jail, and you're constantly bailing them out, you're enabling them. Or if you have someone who's trying to quit the habit of drinking, and you every so often give them a drink, or give them money to get a drink, you're enabling them. If you've got someone who's trying to quit the habit of smoking, and you ever so often they bum cigarettes from you, or they, tobacco products of any kind, and you keep giving it to them or going and buying it for them, you're enabling them. And that's wrong. So it could be 1,000 different things. Those things just popped into my head. So we have to, we've got to pay attention to what we do and how we do it, and make sure that we do what the Lord tells us to do. Because I'm headstrong. Whenever I get information on something, or I finally figure something out, like I figured out something this past week on a particular subject, And I was like, man, I said, man, I can't wait to do a video on this. You know, I said, man, this is going to be really cool. And God said, no, it's not time. I said, but Lord, somebody could use this. He said, I'm telling you, it's not time. He said, when it's time, you can talk about it. But until it's time, people will not understand. They will not get it. It will go in deaf ears. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, then I won't say anything. And it just burns within me. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, when I see somebody, I start talking about it, and the Lord's like, I told you not to say nothing. And sometimes I can be talking to somebody and I'll say, excuse me just a minute, I gotta run to the restroom or something. And I'll go into the bathroom and I'll stand there and I'll say, Lord, I'm sorry. I said something and you told me not to say, and I did it anyway. I'm sorry. I said, sometimes it's just hard for me to follow directions like I should when I have information that I think is vital. But when God says no, it's not time. See, everything with God has to do with timing. And time is everything to us, but time means nothing to God as far as lengthwise. But He has everything laid out on a time schedule. So I'm trying to learn, and guys, I pray that you'll pray for me, that I'm trying my best to live my life more for God than for myself. I've got to take my eyes off of myself and what I want to get done and get it more toward what does the Lord want me to have done. Because if I go out here and I say, well, I need to build this, or I need to do that, or I need to do this, and God doesn't tell me to do it, it's wasted time and energy. And that's one thing that I'm having to come to reality with. Because I'm like an Energizer bunny most of the time. I mean, I'm just go, 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 go. And some things are not necessary. And that's what I want us to kind of understand today, is the simple fact that there's so much fear-mongering going on out here in the world about things that's coming or things that's going to happen that we have absolutely no control over. Revelations tells us that some things are going to happen, and it doesn't matter what we do, they're going to come to fruition. I mean, if God says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. There's nothing we can do about it. And there's, in Matthew 24, he plainly tells us, don't let it bother you. These things must come to pass. And we've got to get that in our heads. Me, number one, some things have just got to happen. It don't matter how much I prepare or how much I do or what I think about, unless the Lord tells me to do it, it's wasted time and energy. So right now, I'm going to be honest with y'all, at Deep South Homestead, Wanda and I are just tying up loose ends. We've got a lot of projects around here. It's just got loose ends, not finished. That's all I'm doing right now. I'm taking every day, focusing on projects to finish them. I'm not starting any new projects. We're just tying up the loose ends and just saying, Lord, what else? What do you want us to do? We're going to tie up the loose ends. You've been good enough to bless us with certain things. We're going to complete them, and we're not doing anything until you tell us to. Now, we're going to raise our food, because that's just sound wisdom. But as far as starting new major projects, we're not going to do it. We're just going to try and sit back and say, nope, no more high tunnels, no more barns and buildings and ponds and, none of this stuff right now. Until God clearly, or the Spirit clearly leads me to do something new. I'm not going to do anything new. I'm just simply going to be finishing and tying up loose ends. Like our garden shed here, I've been working on that. I got some loose ends on that to tie up. I got some loose ends to tie up in my barn when Mr. Mickey gets the rest of our lumber to us. We got a few loose ends to tie up in the barn there. The second floor, finish it out. And, a couple of walls in there I need to finish out. I need a tack room for stuff. I was going to build a new corral system and all for the cattle. I told Wanda, I said, no, I just went and bought all the steel pipe gate systems and all that to put together. I told her, I said, you know what? I'll just put this pipe one together. I said, if I don't like what I'm doing, I can change it, and it'll last for longer than the lumber will, to be honest with you, in the Deep South. So, and I said, if I need to move it, I can move it. So that's the route we went on that. Makes it a lot easier. We save a lot of time. We're trying to get rid of our chickens, except for we've got 2 batches. We don't need 2. We're just going to keep the 1. And we're going to sell the others. I've got turkeys. I'm at the point now where I'm butchering my turkeys one at a time. The last one weighed out at 35 pounds, and that's a lot of turkey. And I'm going to get that completed. There's going to be no more turkeys. There's going to be no more meat chickens, because we have plenty. And I'm just not going to keep doing it, guys. We're going to make our sugarcane syrup, Lord willing. I've been getting the facilities ready to do that. And we've been putting our cool weather plants in the high tunnel. We've been putting some outside, trying to get that done. There'll be some fruit tree pruning coming up here lately. Not lately, before long, and some muscadine and scuppernine vine pruning coming up. Planting the ryegrass in my fields if it ever rains again, where I can get some grass growing for the cows for this winter. Just tying up loose ends. I got firewood to cut. Believe it or not, we still have not cut our firewood. We've had the logs cut for a year now, but we haven't got cut and split them because I can't get out in this 100-something degree heat index and cut with a chainsaw. So now we're fixing to get everything cleaned up and focused on taking the grapple and sitting there and sawing up some blocks of wood and start busting that, Lord willing. Just, trying to get these loose ends tied up, guys. And I would suggest we do some soul searching and ask ourselves the questions. Are we living for God, or are we living for ourselves? Because the problem in America is most of us live for ourselves. And I've been guilty. And I've got to make some changes. And I felt like when the Lord showed me this, that I feel like I'm probably not the only one in this same boat. Because we have a tendency to become self-centered as human beings. It's human nature. It's not anything to be ashamed of. It's just human nature. So it's time to move forward in a new direction. And guys, I hope and pray that y'all will keep us in your prayers as we try to make this transition. What does our future hold for us here at Deep South? I don't really know now. The Lord has set us up to be able to do some things. But how will our future look? I don't know. I'm a little concerned about some events weather-wise that I know is probably going to happen. I'm concerned about it. I'm not going to lie. I'm not scared. I'm just concerned about it. I'm concerned about my family, for the future of my family, because of upcoming events. But I've got to trust the Lord and live for Him. And I really believe if I do that, and I follow His leadership, that He'll lead Wanda and I in the direction that will be best for our entire family. And I think we would all do wise if we would do the same things. So I wanted to leave y'all with that little bit of a story today, because and it's mainly been for me today. May not bless a single person out there, but I just had to talk about it. And I just appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time to sit here and listen to me talk about my problems and how the Lord is working with me through some things. And if it blesses you, then I'm thankful and I'm grateful that the Lord has used my situation to be a blessing to you. So thank you guys from Deep South Homestead.